Kelly.
Jean Taiwan.
Kurt Mathis. Kurt Bentley.
Bert McKenna.
John DePavy. Steve Harlan.
And we're gonna start a new process tonight, and we're gonna do the pledge to the flag prior to the meeting. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The meeting guidelines are pretty much the same as they've been for the last 4 or 5 months. We've had the really no discussion, so based on the audience, I don't think I need to repeat that. We're handling things the same way as we were previously. Next on the agenda is the meeting minutes. And these are from October 8th. Yeah, the meeting minutes I got the word 8th. Get those off. Yeah, do I just no one stick on one? They're attached. Oh, they're attached. Okay.
Oh, got it. Okay.
I got November 19th. I don't have the.
October 8th?
Yeah, or no, I don't have November
Yeah, it
12th.
says October 8th up here at the top.
I probably didn't change the date.
Look at the 19th at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So this is actually the 12th, then, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha.
The 19th is the
I
12th.
should change that.
Yeah, it's shown as October 8th, but it's actually
November.
November 12th. Yep.
That's the reading right.
I move with the correction of the date, we approve the minutes.
You're doing both? Both of them? The 12th and 19th?
Well, let's do the 12th first. So,
Public vote.
okay. Need a second for the 12th.
I'll second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
If, on the 19th, I just wanted to, what's the procedure for notification? I guess that wasn't a planned meeting, that was one that was called, right, for a special meeting? What's the procedure for notification?
The procedure for notification was executed in the meeting on the 12th. And then the meeting that took place on the 19th was a meeting that was based upon the seeker for Sue Sherman, correct?
Right.
Because we didn't execute the seeker properly at the previous meeting for the county, right?
Correct. So, that's fine, then I just wasn't notified of that one, so if we're gonna become a stickler on attendance record and stuff.
Yeah.
I wasn't notified of that one.
Yeah, you should have been. Sorry about that. What was the, I didn't come to that one either. Myself, I was out, but can you tell us what was the key on that? Why we had to,
We had to do we should have done the seeker on the 12th. And because we didn't do the seeker on the 12th, we called a special meeting to complete the seeker for her on the 19th, which was the earliest date that most of us could get, a quorum of us to get together to do the seeker.
I wasn't told about the meeting either. I didn't find out about it until that day, so it's okay. I wasn't
I
contacted.
think if we missed that date, then he was gonna
It
have to
wasn't-
wait another,
Right,
we
well,
were
it
gonna
wasn't,
miss some deadlines.
it wasn't a
Right.
big deal. It was just a quorum is all it was needed for that, and it's just to fill out the form, so.
Can it go on the website so that the public knows about it?
well, it is gonna be on the website because of the meeting minutes are on there, correct?
No, but I mean, it should have been on so people could come.
It was my fault it did not get put on the website because I was out of town. I left on Friday, and I wasn't notified of when it was gonna be until after that.
Maybe we should just go over quick what was,
On the seeker. Do you have a copy of it?
I do.
I don't think I have one.
It was one that we've already completed. It's just that she changed her application, we had to formally go back and do it again, right? So, it was new.
Yeah, so they're very good, going through all those questions.
Yeah, it's going to be the questions. is all it was.
Shelley's got the question.
I can I'm on.
Okay.
For now, because
I know. There's Watson's that we went over.
Yeah, this was secret for Watson Intro.
We had to do him.
Because he changed the addition.
Right.
Right, yeah, there were two.
I don't have hers because I gave that to you. Because it was already
Which I
done.
scratched and I
Yeah.
gave it
So
Okay.
I don't have that one in front of me.
So Eric Watson went through his process back 6 months ago or so, and we did this short form, this short environmental assessment form at that time. But when he came back to the meeting in November, he requested to add an addition on his building that was not in the original plan. Right. Which I-
It was
Yes.
8 feet to the
8
north.
feet to the north.
further.
Here's the number,
Sure.
Watson.
This is, I got Watson, Lee, or Watson. So, we allowed a modification of 8 additional feet to Watson's permit without going to the county. And we also had to go through this short form environmental assessment again to address any additional changes.
And all of it came out as a negative, so.
It was a negative declaration. So.
Yeah. So. Answered the same way it was previously when we did it the first time. And then the other, Sue Sherman's, did you find that one? Now, Sue Sherman, her property was, not, is there another page of that week?
You want the whole thing?
Yeah.
That's your section of it.
Okay. So, shoes, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
came to the meeting back in November with a request for a modification to her existing special use permit to allow for two different changes. The first one was to have build a new storage building on the property, which currently has a special use permit, and also to replace a trailer that exists on the same property. And when she came to the meeting, we failed to do the seeker, so we went through it on November 19th.
So the seeker really didn't change anything, the review's still the same?
Well, it's probably a good idea if we go through and read the questions so everybody knows. Because was it recorded? Was it recorded previously?
No, not
On the 19th, at that special meeting? Okay. All right, so this is the seeker answers that were recorded for Sue Sherman's parcel. I'll just go through and read them just so we know. Does the proposed action involve the legislative adoption of a plan, local law, ordinance, administrative rule, or regulation? No. Does the proposed action require permanent approval or funding from any other government agency? No. The total acreage of the site of the proposed action, 7.9 acres. No acres will be physically disturbed. Of permitted use under the zoning regulations, yes. Consistent with the adapted comprehensive plan, yes. Is proposed action consistent with the predominant character of the existing built or natural landscape? Yes. Is the site of the proposed action located on or does it adjoin a state-listed critical environmental area? No. Will the proposed action result in substantial increase in traffic above present levels? No. Are the public transportation services available at or near the site of the proposed action? No. Are any pedestrian accommodations or bicycle routes available on or near the site of proposed action? No. Does the proposed action meet or exceed the state energy code requirements? If proposed action will exceed requirements, describe design features and technologies. No. Will the proposed action connect to an existing public-private water supply? Yes. Will the proposed action connect to existing wastewater utilities? Yes. Does the site, if anybody's got any questions, does the site contain a structure that is listed on either the state or Natural Register of Historic Places? No. Is the proposed action located in an archaeological sensitive area? No. Does any portion of the site of the proposed action or lands adjoining the proposed action contain wetlands or other water bodies regulated by federal, state, or local agency? No. Will the proposed action physically alter or encroach into any existing wetland or water body? No. Identify the typical habitat types that occur and are likely to be found on the project site, agricultural and grassland. Does the site of the proposed action contain any specific animal associated habitat listed by the state or federal government as threatened or endangered? No. Is the project site located in the 100-year floodplain? No. Will the proposed action create storm water discharge either from point or no point sources? No. Does the proposed action include construction or other activities that result in the impoundment of water or other liquids? No. Has the site of proposed action or adjoining property been located of an active or closed solid waste management facility? No. Has the site of the proposed action or adjoining property been subject to remediation for hazardous waste? No. And then Sue signed this. And then part 2 is the impact assessment. Will the proposed action create material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? No. Will the proposed, and this, the answers, the two answers they offer are no or small impact may occur, and then moderate to large impact may occur. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of the land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit biking walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonable available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Will the proposed action impact existing public and private water supplies or public and private wastewater treatment facilities? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. So Wes signed this on the 19th, and it says check this box if you have determined based on the information analysis above and any supporting documentation that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts. So this has to go to the county now, and they'll have this seeker form with it, and then it will come back from the county with their recommendation, and then we will schedule a public hearing and we will vote on it.
I just have a question. I'm really glad that you guys are trying to get some businesses in the area. It's phenomenal. It's wonderful. I do have, can you tell me, for my own benefit, how do you decide whether something is an archaeological site or a historical site? How do we know? What do we do to find that out? Do you research something, or you just take somebody's word? How do you find that out?
I think we have a map in our,
Comprehensive plan.
yes.
Yeah.
You go by the map in the comprehensive plan?
Which we just updated recently.
Right.
Can we get that from the county? The county gets it from state.
Yeah. Yeah, we can get you a copy of that if you'd like.
So you get it from the county, and the county gets it from the state? Okay, thank you, because I wasn't aware how that worked.
And as you can see, we saved you out of a very boring 10 minutes of when we did this.
Oh, no, I wasn't questioning that. I just want to know what the seeker is. Because
Yeah.
eventually I want to know how to do it. If I want to build something, I want to make sure I'm compliant. So I just want to know what it was all about.
Okay. Did we didn't vote on the November 19th meeting minutes then?
I move we accept the minutes of November 19th as states.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is the attendance and the training. You want to go over that one?
The training law? Sure. There's one correction. Right here is, I attended the one at NCC,
Okay.
Triple C.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep. So this is just a attendance log. We started doing this year, and just to keep track of who's been in attendance and like that. And we need to make a log of where each of our trainings was and the hours. Each of us has to do 4 hours of training. Most of them are given here at the Hogue Library. If you don't catch those, then there's others in Batavia or local ones. So that's all there is.
Am I current?
Yes, you were at the Hogue Library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How often are they offered?
About 4 times a year.
Different places.
Yeah, different places locally, between the Rochester area, Batavia, and Triple C, and the one here at Hogue Library.
Hogue is usually May or June.
Once a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, once a year. Yeah, for each of them. But there's 4 local ones.
Do they do the whole 4 hours all at once?
Yes.
And Triple C is coming up soon, because I took mine the last time, and it was like in February.
We just did the one in November.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah, I put down fall. I couldn't remember. I think it was in November.
You can carry
Can I
more.
look at that?
Yes, we can.
You do it online too, correct?
You can do it online too.
Yeah. Yes, there is.
Online option.
Okay.
All the neighbors, huh? Kurt, you're here.
Yep. Next is appointment. And we have a new member, George is new alternate member. Thank you for being part of this. And we have we have an open spot for the alternate, and we received an email from Sean here that Eric Watson is interested in the alternate position we have. Wes and I talked about this a little bit, but I'd like to make a motion that we interview Eric with the same questions and the same process we did for Steve and George.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
So I can, any opposed discussion? Yeah.
Do you think, I mean, it's been pretty much historic that it's hard to get people to do it. Is that gonna be another barrier that people say, I don't go through that?
Through the interview?
Yeah.
I think he'll be receptive to it. I was gonna call him and try to feel him out, to see if he's receptive to it.
So far, he's the only applicant.
Yeah, it's kind of odd we would do it when there's only one person. If we had two.
The only thing it would do is it would give us some kind of a basis of, you know,
Continuity.
his intent. Yeah.
I would say it would be consistent, because
Yeah.
if we're not,
Yeah.
You'd have to be real poor for us not to accept it.
and it's not like it's that difficult a question.
No, they're.
So they're very practical, straightforward.
And you have 2 people to choose from, I can say.
Is there any, as far as, do they have to live in the town for so long, or, I know he's coming from Lyndonville, but, you have to, first of all, is he a resident of the town, Barry?
He lives at a Wilkins Road.
Okay, and then if there's how long you have to be in town?
I never read anything about length of, yeah.
we have two alternates, and say I couldn't make it to the meeting, so an alternate would fill in, who chooses which alternate fills in? Would it be the first alternate, like would it be George, because he was the first alternate, or, that question might come up at some period, we should have a note of something we could,
Yeah, that's a
not that
good
it's
point.
a real big issue, but it could be a point of contention.
Yeah. Or both of them get to vote.
Well, that's the thing, as long as we decide now, we shouldn't have to decide when it comes up.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think most of the time there's one alternate on board, but maybe, correct me if I'm wrong.
Who's the
It's
CEO?
one or the other.
It's also in this one,
Is it in there?
but yeah, I
Well,
think
that's
it's
a-
the same one, 2011, no, 2009 mine is. Sorry.
I know that four is the number for a quorum for the planning board. 4 people.
Or,
Well, I guess that's another, second part of the question is does the alternate fill in if there's an absentee, or if there's just not enough of a quorum to vote?
like if we're voting on an issue and there's an alternate here, but there's not enough regular members here, does the alternate have to vote? Is that their obligation? Is that the question?
Yes.
Well, why- That's what they're here for.
Right, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
But say I stayed home today, and you got plenty of people for a quorum,
See,
is the alternate, would George be a voting member today if I wasn't here?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
I think it states it right in, the green line there, that you appoint, if you're absent one, you appoint the alternate to take that person's place during that particular meeting.
but we're trying to decide which alternate, if they were both here.
I would say personally, the senior person, the first
Right.
one that came on, and the next one would be the second.
That's the way they do it in Congress too.
But do they only become active when you don't have a quorum?
Right.
Not just,
They're active in discussion, but they can't vote.
but only when you need them for
But
the
when you
vote?
need somebody, then you can place them into it, and
Because
then they have all the rights to vote.
like Kirk was saying, he could be missing tonight, and we still have a quorum.
I don't think it does.
We go with, 35069, oh, okay, I can read it here. The planning board shall establish such rules and regulations as are required by law and the provisions herein for the transaction of their business, and may amend, modify, and repeal the same from time to time. It doesn't say they have to be here live in the town a certain amount of time. It just says that we can establish rules and regulations as required by law. It doesn't give anything more. Are you finding anything else?
No, I'm not. I was going further.
That's the only thing I can find in here to go, that we can make up we can decide here how we want to do this.
As far as qualifications for candidates?
No, there's nothing in here about qualifications.
Just a side note, I can never remember anybody voting opposite the rest of the group in over 10 years. May have thought different, but we talked them into somebody.
Or they
We discussed it out.
discuss it,
And we
right.
never had a nay against the rest of the yeas.
It's always been unanimous.
Yeah,
Yes.
we have come to an agreement between us.
Yeah, it's probably rare.
It's
Sure.
Well, I think the deal, you just need a quorum. I mean, as long as there's a quorum to vote on something, it can be 3-1, it still goes through.
Mhm.
So when I thought it was one of the things that came up as an alternate, I was allowed to have the conversations and give my input, but if they already had a quorum, I didn't vote. If they needed me to make a quorum, then they activated me for that issue, for that night.
Seems reasonable.
That's how it was explained. And I can't find where
That's really.
got its notes in there, but.
But if you are there and you fill in for someone, then your vote's just as good as the next person's.
Right, correct.
Yeah, it's not a,
So it's not that,
it's not whose vote's better than the other one.
Right. So it's just that you still get a vote if you're there as an alternate.
Oh, the senior one.
Yeah. If you go that way.
In the short course book, it talks about the requirements. Being a public officer, you have to be 18 years old, U.S. citizen, and a resident of the municipality on whose board you serve. What constitutes a residence? Legally, it's when you're domiciled? I don't know what that means. Okay, which is to say it's where you actually live, at least most of the time. Sometimes this isn't easy to document, but two factors weigh more heavily than any others. Where you are registered to vote and where you are licensed to drive. Generally, a person who has one address for those purposes, and if someone wants to make an issue of your residence qualification, he would start by asserting those facts.
So if Eric's registered to vote in the town of Berry, he's good. He lives there.
We can make that.
I know for Ella, when I had to get a residency in Alabama, it was just get a license, have a paycheck from Alabama, and pass my driver's license and get a driver's license from Alabama. And I was a resident.
This may talk about the voting too, so I was wondering.
He moved there in 2015.
What's that?
Eric Watson moved down to the Wilkins Road in 2015.
Okay. All right, well, we can find out, we should look into those the alternate voting and the process for that, so that we have a plan.
Well, I think we agreed on it. If we don't have a quorum, an alternate would step in.
And it would be the senior alternate, right? Okay.
Well, it's not, it's still, it's voting, if a member's missing, then the alternate steps in and can still vote on the issues. Doesn't need a quorum.
Yeah, so it's not so short.
Yes,
Correct. No, you can,
if there's,
You need a quorum if people aren't here. If the alternates aren't here and nobody's here, you got four, you can still partake of business.
yeah,
But if the alternate's here, he still votes. If he has to
if
fill
we
in
don't
for
have a
somebody.
quorum.
No, the quorum is only if you don't have enough. The alternate would still vote.
Yeah, not so sure about that.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean, that's one of the things that's not certain.
Why would they state a quorum is 4 people?
Because if you don't have the alternates aren't here
Or
either.
members.
Right, and that's all you have is 4 members, the alternates aren't here. If you have an alternate here,
We have
he
five.
still votes. I mean, you got a quorum of 5.
so.
I think we can change that in New York State.
Look it up.
Yeah, we'll check it out. New York State town law. I didn't bring those papers with me, darn it.
The board is 7 people, right? What would be the point of having alternates if they don't step in when one of you is
How about
absent?
raising your hand, John?
Oh,
You
stop.
start that every meeting, you start out pretty good, you raise your hand, but then you start in.
Well, what's the difference then between, I'm going back to when I originally did it. I'm just telling you what the board told me. When we had this, and Sean told me the same thing. If an alternate votes, then why is it called an alternate? My understanding was, we had the
He's not-
input,
If he goes in as a member, then it's not an alternate, you still vote, you're a voting member. So if Kurt wasn't here tonight, and I stepped in and something, a vote came up, I would have a vote.
You understand
No, it's not.
Article 1.
the other situation, that would only happen if we don't have a quorum, because we don't need 5 people.
Well, there's a question there, and we don't have the answers in our
No,
heads.
we don't have it, so
Yeah.
let's check it
I
out.
understand what the other section is, but that's the way I
So it
understand it.
depends, I don't know. Others
The
understand
quorum,
other
the
ways.
way I understand the quorum is, if you don't have 4 people,
The
at least 4
Article
people,
1
you can't have a meeting.
is
If you don't
for
have-
alternate members.
Okay, what's the number, page number? All right, I'll look it up.
It's not in there, is it?
No.
Yeah, we don't have it in our books.
If we don't have 4 making up of members and alternates, you're right, you can't vote, regardless. But if you have only 4 members, if we don't have 4, but you do have alternates, then you don't need to vote.
If you have, right, if you have 2 alternates tonight, and you're 4, you're okay, that's your quorum. But if you have, so it's kind of a new thing, I mean, the alternate sort of, what we're saying is if you have 6, and you have a team of 7, the alternate steps in, when the vote comes up, you can still vote on that. You still vote, and that's the way it's functions, but you still have a vote when you're there.
We check it out. I'll do it. Let's check it out instead of our meeting.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're not sure, none of us are sure, so thank you.
we wanted to find a duty.
It's on the New York State Board.
Yes, we're gonna find that.
Next is the solar. Which we haven't talked about in a while, because there's been a lot of discussion about the
Pressure, where did we leave off?
Yeah, I mean, remember. I gotta say, if you don't do that whole thing with the wind, I would just as soon say, let's not have any solar farms in the town of Berry, because I'm sure that'll be a problem. Let's just have regular, individuals on solar, have our rules for that, but solar farms, I don't know. Arguing. Something will certainly come up from solar. People don't mind.
I'm not here to take it from the people, from the whole town.
I know, but you guys took the time to go put wind turbines in our laws, and how good that did, so. And you wasted all that time, so why waste our time on solar farms?
well, I think you still have to have a policy. I think your point will take. No one's gonna show up about solar until someone comes with a solar project. Farmington's going through it right now. They don't, it's a pasture, you can go on and look about it and whatever else. But if we don't have anything,
I just say, let's not allow it. Put it in the books, no solar farms.
I don't know if it's us sitting here to make that decision.
Well, it would make it a lot easier with.
Oh, I agree. I mean, the easy way for life is to say no to everything. But that's not necessarily, I know where you're going.
I'm saying individuals can have it, but no problem, let's make rules for that. No, I'm fine.
No.
We can work
No,
on it.
I know,
We'll work
I
on
understand
it,
what you're
but
saying.
It's just,
So what you're discussing is, we're gonna sit down and set up a workshop for looking at solar energy or solar panels and see what the pros are and cons are.
No, we were working on that for proposal.
Kind of really get it done.
We're almost done.
We currently
Probably
don't,
should get a copy of what we got so far.
Yeah.
we currently don't have any zoning that regulates any kind of solar.
Well, there's a small, I think there's a small paragraph. Nothing as far as commercial.
So throughout the last couple of years, all the towns in our county have adopted a solar zoning, some solar zoning except us. And it's gone through the county, and that's kind of where we took our guidelines from other towns.
You better keep up.
Yeah.
What we do have is on the town website.
Yeah.
Right now, it's easy to look up.
Oh, it is. Current proposal, current
Yeah,
draft that we have so far?
yeah, that's right on there. Pretty easy to look at.
There was still some details that we had to go over from the,
Yeah.
Well, we sent it to Lance, and Lance wanted some professional look at it, right? Isn't that the way you got a lot?
I don't know.
Oh, there was a couple words he wanted changed,
Yeah, you sent back a letter,
and,
and the letter's attached right here.
and that's about where we got
of
to,
his,
right?
Yes, okay, I remember.
of the things that he wanted to, see how long it's been?
Yeah.
It was 17, he wanted to change to 18.
Now we
I want
have
to
to change it
change
to
to
19.
19.
What's the date on that letter?
January
January
12th.
12th, 2018.
Was that long ago? Wasn't there a moratorium that was put on?
We were looking to put a moratorium.
Never did?
No, we didn't do that. The moratorium was only gonna be for 6 months, and we decided, what are we doing? Let's just get it done.
And 6 months has gone
Yeah,
by.
yeah. Luckily, nobody's
We
come
did a
in.
moratorium without knowing.
If somebody was knocking on the door today, then you would do a moratorium, just to hold them off. I haven't heard anybody bothering, coming around.
Yeah.
Where do you think we gotta go? We do have those comments from Lance. Those are the most recent.
Let's get the brief history.
I'll give you a little brief.
Yeah, just a 2-minute version.
So, again, there is no zoning, we have a comprehensive plan
Yeah.
just updated a year ago. Went through all the process and got that, initiated and so forth. And that comprehensive plan talks about green energy. It talks about our intention to, to support that. So, again, going to the county every month, over the last couple of years, you've seen all these different towns come through with their zoning and update their zoning to include some kind of solar portion.
So is ours a mirror of theirs? I guess that's my line.
So, so what we did is we took Kendall, right?
Kendall and Murray.
And Murray together.
Yeah.
We
Use those guidelines.
picked them apart a little bit and changed some things that we felt were appropriate for our town. Not anything really major that I can recall. And we gave that draft version to Lance to look at.
Okay.
And he got back to us with some comments that were dated in January of 18.
And do we take that then and send it to the county again?
We did not.
What's the rest of the procedure here?
Yeah, the rest of the procedure would be to get the zoning together that everybody feels is, fulfilled and complete.
As a
And then-
proposal, right?
Yep, we'd have to do a short form assessment, and we'd send it to the county for their review, and it would get reviewed there. Then it would come back here, we'd have a public hearing on it, and then we as a board would vote on it, and,
Send it to the town board.
yeah, would we send it to the town board then?
Yeah.
Yeah. For final approval, right?
Yeah.
That's how it was done with the wind, so that's how it was done with this.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, I guess the wind specifically states that it's going to the town board.
I think we stated that in that as
Same
well,
with
they
this.
were gonna be the lead agency
On the
on the solar.
Yeah.
I
I believe
believe,
Did we put that in,
I believe so.
in our proposal? I think, yeah.
At least that's the way we were heading, same process. Is the wind.
So the updates on the website for the solar, does that have the changes that Lance? No.
I don't know, because we got waylaid with the wind, so I don't know how much got done on, nothing got done on the solar.
No, we didn't do
that.
anything.
It left it at this letter.
Okay.
Is there any disadvantage to putting that on the website and having it be our proposed?
Long as
Well, what's his,
What, his points were minutia, weren't they?
They weren't anything major,
Yeah, do.
This,
I
you
mean,
can read it.
I can't.
Just changing our year, we had
Yeah.
2017, it needs to 18, now it's gonna have to be 2019. Under the definition of small-scale solar, the definition excludes other buildings on the same property. My question is whether you want this restriction to apply to auxiliary buildings such as barns, detached garages, etc., which may draw their power from the building to which the solar panels are affixed. I mean, it's just little things in here. I think language needs to be clarified on the one, why is one limited to 25,000 watts and the other 58,000? It's just a matter of how he interpreted it, and we're gonna have to go through and tweak a little bit.
You have to put on the website updated, so we realize we have to read.
Yeah, we want to consult with Lance first and make sure he's okay that we put that on there.
Oh, yeah, I don't know about putting this on it. I
No.
think we need to go through us and correct it and then put it on the website.
Right.
Is what's on the website clearly defined as preliminary? It's not final draft or,
I don't,
You know.
There's preliminary, and contact anybody here who might
Yeah.
have questions.
okay.
Just to give us knowledge of something, so.
I don't want to think that it's done by any means.
yeah.
Just put the word proposal on it, that people know it's not.
Well, that's what we're trying to get to, is a final proposal. Because all we're doing is proposing this to the town board.
So we had something different than what's on the site here, because this doesn't say everything that we were discussing that I have at home. I didn't realize we were doing all this tonight. Because mine, from what I had was different. I thought maybe not.
So this, the one you're looking at there is this, right?
No. Yeah. This is, here, Tom, show you that.
this is dated 2018, what's that now?
Yeah. I'm gonna change it to 19,
Yeah, but we had 17 on there.
right? So it's up to
Maybe we
you.
went through and changed that.
We discussed it at length a couple of times. I remember John had some pretty good points.
There's some, this is the same as what I have here. There's some,
Okay.
there are some typed comments on the bottom here. Changed to 25 kilowatts per hour.
Mhm.
Are these were based on Lance's?
Yeah, Lance's letter is on the back of that, that I just, he just gave
Small
me.
scales.
But those
You know, when this got put on,
sorry,
was it after we?
Yeah.
did this already?
Yeah,
This is the letter.
That's what you have, right?
Yep, this is the
Okay.
letters.
it was after we've already discussed Lance's, so maybe we've got the update on here.
Maybe there was still some discussions I think you wanted to do. Like I changed the year,
Okay.
from 17 to 18.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I
That's why
changed
it's
some of the 25 to,
50 to the 25 or whatever,
Right,
yeah.
Discuss
so that they were both even.
But there's still some to be discussed.
We were still talking about the outbuildings.
The auxiliary buildings, yeah.
Right.
It's difficult that we don't all have it in front of us to look at. It needs to be, that we can all
Yeah,
see.
which version?
Right. Right. Evidently, we'll go by what's on here and then verify what Lance gave us to make sure this is correct. That would be my thought.
Seems like if we took Lance's version that he marked up and then used that as our baseline to get started.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I would do. Take what's off of here, what's on right now, and then take what he suggests, make sure they correspond.
So the copy that you have right there is from Lance?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
okay, so
I
it's
don't have the letter attached
Yes,
to
you
it.
do on the back of it.
Well, this is the one you have, right, that you gave me right here.
Oh, okay, all right.
This has
He has
Lance's
another
letter.
copy with it. Lance,
Oh, a
Red
different
line.
one. Oh, okay.
Oh, wasn't there some discussion about getting somebody else to review this?
There was an offer, somebody offered to help, but we thought we should have somebody that was non-biased, wasn't in the business.
yes, that's right, because that, they were, weren't they?
Well, why don't we get a hold of Lance, and then we'll work off the one that's on our website, right? Is that our next step?
Maybe next meeting, we get ourselves all,
All copies of
Copies.
that.
you know,
Same.
get the copies off the website, get ourselves up to speed, get Lance here, go over his stuff.
Or at least get Lance's letter so that we can go over that, yeah.
Or maybe Lance.
And can we get that maybe by, you know, so we have a week or two to review it prior? Can you email it to everybody? Okay. And then we'll use Lance's comments as a starting point then, right?
That sounds good to me.
Makes sense.
So we'll say by the first of the year, hopefully, everybody's got that in their hand.
Bring it to the next meeting.
Yeah. Then we get a little bit of time to review it.
How about Lance's comments too, at the same time?
Do you think we ought to ask him to be here with us for the January meeting to go through it?
That'd be better than waiting until
Yeah.
February, March after he's
Right.
gone.
Yeah, yeah.
Here and there.
But we want time to review it and then get his thoughts on it. And have your thoughts right then and there.
Yeah. Got the letter from Lance too,
Mhm. Yeah.
sent out as well.
Can you ask Lance if he can be here for January?
See how that goes.
Does anybody have any suggestion on another town's,
Every other town,
that we ought to look at?
well, we looked at them as they did them.
Yep.
And ended up at the end with Kendall and Murray.
Fit close to what we want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What town did you say was getting one right now?
Farm.
Yeah.
Us, Barry. All the rest are done.
No, I mean,
No, I mean,
they're
no.
getting a farm.
Oh.
Farm, yeah.
Yeah.
Might be
Farm
interesting to
intent.
review what they're going through.
Well, they're going through
I
some,
heard a blurb on the
yeah,
radio.
People are complaining,
Oh, yeah.
big time.
are the cows gonna die?
That's why I say, let's just make it no farms.
This is interesting. Pembroke did they passed a local law that, this was just back, when I was in the spring of this year. Intent of the local law is to allow the town of Pembroke to opt out of solar, wind, and farm energy systems, real property tax exemptions. So if you have one in their town, you're not gonna get an exemption.
Well, they're going with the pilot agreement.
No.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
Does that mean the opposite?
Well,
A pilot is payment in lieu of taxes, where you don't pay taxes. Here,
What do they say?
Yeah, they're saying pay taxes,
oh,
so they're giving up
you
the
know, the
pilot,
problem with
Giving
it
up to pilot.
is they grievance that,
and then they say it's not worth this much. It's like anyone else, when you tell them their home's worth
Mhm.
200,000, they come and tell you it's worth 50.
and it happened with all the cell towers here probably 15 years ago. They won, cut them right in half, their value.
I don't understand the pilot program, because the way the pilot program is supposed to work is economically you don't have to pay taxes, but you're going to stimulate the economy by producing jobs and that, and, you know, to offset with that. I don't understand this pilot program with the.
They're paying money, George. They pay money.
Paid up, there's a dollar.
Yeah,
And
It's nowhere near the amount that we could be getting in tax money.
But then they can argue that tax, they can argue that assessment. And they got lawyers and they usually win.
Is that,
This is what
is
happened.
that what drives, I mean, the point here, I
Pretty
think, being
much.
asked is, why one and not the other? What's the?
Because you would make an agreement, is, here's what you're gonna be paid. Never mind what.
Up front, that's what a pilot,
Well, to the years.
yeah, but up front, that's what a pilot
Yes,
gives you, is advantage.
that's an agreement, what you pay.
It's a contract.
That can't be changed, it's in the contract. But if you have taxes and it's assessed for $1 million, they can come back in a year or two and say, it's not worth that.
Every year they can keep doing it.
Sure. We have a grievance here. If you don't feel you're getting taxed properly, you come to grievance day and you argue your case. And you might get a lawyer, you might not.
But if it costs, you know, $1.5 million, $2 million to put up a wind turbine, and then they're gonna come back and say, well, it's really only worth, you know.
I would assume that's how it, so they couldn't get out of it down the road.
Or is, I was wondering whether or not a pilot was advantageous to the people coming in, they were giving them a break, the town, as an incentive to come in.
Why would you give them a break?
To get them in.
Because they were supposed to stimulate economy and provide jobs and boost the economy. That's why you give pilot program to, the places that came into Batavia.
Those
And all the dairy, yeah, all the yogurt plants and everything.
They're all looking for,
To stimulate the economy.
well, no, they're looking for a reason to come in there as opposed to going somewhere else.
Right.
Give me a sweeter deal and I'll bring my factory in. That type
Right.
of thing, you know, I mean.
There's,
Right.
let's just leave it at, there's two different ways to look at it. I know they can argue an assessment, but they can't argue a pilot agreement that's a contract.
So that's the advantage that you see it from this.
Then,
Well, there's two sides of it. So if you're a business, you wanna know what you're gonna spend up front,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that would be an
I mean,
advantage.
that's the advantage to them, so they'll give you more money up front. And this is a more, we can argue this all night long, but it's no different than IDA, where people will say, well, I gave all this money, and then they're gonna, somebody's gonna come back and say, well, we spent $300,000 per job.
This is what you're gonna pay us per year.
You see that all the time in the papers. People say,
Yeah, I've heard that
but
too.
we're in New York State, and there's money, and that's how they manufacture, I don't know, manufacture, but that's a program. And whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent,
And it's, each pilot is written differently.
Correct.
I mean, you could write a pilot for the first 5 years being zero. Payments come
At
5
the
years
end.
later.
But-
Those are the ones that are written
That's
to
right.
stimulate economy. You come
So-
into our community, you start building, we employ our
No
people for the first couple of years, you have to pay us zilch,
Yep.
zero.
And some of it's used to offset the high taxes in New York State, so they use the money so that you don't pick up your plant and move it to Midwest. I mean, so
That's what Ohio is.
you can't put a dollar amount, unfortunately, on what it costs because of the economic effect. I mean, it is there. It's like a rebate. You don't use it, somebody else. It's the deal.
Anyway, as far as the wind, we left, zoning, we left that it is to be done as a pilot, and it's the town board that negotiates that with the wind people. That's the way it's left,
That's where our zoning is right now.
and that's
The
what we're
town-
planning on doing for industrial solar.
they're looking for some protection too, the company is, because what's to say that Barry Flansburgh wouldn't come in a couple of years and say, well, it's worth $2 million, not $1 million. You know, and then they'd have to go through that struggle.
If they sold it for more money, or another electric company came in, or wind source came in and said, hey, you guys are making hand, or yeah, we'll pay you more, and it would go up with assessment. But we'd have to assess it for what it was built for, what they put into it to start with. And that's where the assessment is coming from. Then if they can't pay the taxes on it, and they say, no, it's not worth it, you know, we're out of here, then they're out of here. I mean, I can't see them coming in and grieve and say, well, the taxes are too high, and It is what it is, it's what you put it up for.
So Shelley's here, I just wanted to make sure, do you have any other thing that's come?
No, I just needed to know whether you were gonna do the joint meeting with the zoning board. Did
Yes.
you decide on that?
We didn't decide on that. So
Okay.
the Sue Sherman application is going to the county Thursday of this week. And after it comes back from the county with their decision, we have to have a public hearing and discuss it with the public and get their comments. It's going to the county with a variance, which was initiated by the zoning board, and then a special use permit modification, which was initiated by the planning board. So the last time we had one of these, that we had both boards involved, we did it at the same time. And if everybody's available on, what's the date?
Next Monday, which is, I don't
It's the
know.
17th.
Yeah.
So if everybody's available on 12/17, and we can get the proper notifications out to the public, right?
It's already been done.
Which we've already done. So I'd make a motion, I'd like to make a motion here that we have the public hearing for the Sue Sherman property at the same time the zoning board has theirs.
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
So she's been notified, Lee, correct? Okay, so 7 o'clock,
Yes.
and then you guys will figure out who goes first.
And all the adjacent property owners have been notified also, and it's on the town website.
So
It'll be in the paper too.
it's not on the town website yet, but it will be tomorrow.
Okay. And the paper also.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we'll vote on, do we want to vote on that after the public hearing? Or do we want to wait and vote on that in our regular January meeting? I would suggest we vote on it at the same time, but I don't know how others feel about that.
Why not?
Yeah, I don't have a problem. We make her wait.
Yeah, there's no reason not to.
Okay. So.
This is for the building and
The pole barn.
the house switch?
Trailer, take one trailer.
Yeah, the
out.
trailer switch you already approved.
Trailer's done.
So she got, well, she hasn't gotten she got the demo to take the old trailer out. She hasn't got the permit to bring the new trailer in yet.
So it's a
Some-
public hearings on just the building being built?
Just on the pole barn, correct, which she said is just for storage. She did not mention anything about office space. If she's going to do office space, she'll have to come back for that. She said she may in the future, but right now it's just for storage. Okay. And Mr. Quill has not come back. He's the one who you guys gave the approval for her old building. He has not come back. I think they're probably, but I have not heard from him because while it's been approved, he did not pay his first payment for the special use permit.
Well, hang on to Quill for 1 second. So I'll make a motion then
Oh,
that
sorry.
we do the vote for the Sue Sherman special use permit after the public hearing on the 17th of December.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
I know the resident will appreciate that.
Question, should we, what should go first? Us or the zoning board, or doesn't it matter?
You guys,
We should do it.
yes, because you were doing a site plan, and the site plan, you could say pending the variance, but you guys should do first because, yeah.
All right.
None of that stuff had to go to the county or anything, we're not gonna be waiting on that.
It does go to the
It's
county
going to county
this week.
this
So it'll
Thursday.
be back, okay.
Yeah.
We'll have it.
So we'll go first and we'll vote on the 17th, right?
So, 7 or 6:30?
Got 7
Is
tonight.
it- all right.
7 o'clock. And then, tell me where we are with Quills, I forgot where we were with Quills.
Well, you guys approved everything. That night, he left and everything was approved, even though, you know, there was some controversy with neighbors and stuff like that, but he has not come back to actually get his permit issued. He has not paid that yet. So I'm assuming they're just, from my understanding, is he's waiting for them to clear it out so that he can take occupancy, but I have not heard, like I said, he hasn't come back to actually get the permit issued. So, just an update on that.
You want somebody to call him and ask?
No, I'm gonna give him a little, again, I'm assuming, when she'll be in next week, so I can ask her
Okay.
to see if there's a holdup. I'm assuming it's cleaning it out, because I think he wanted it empty before he moved in, so that's.
And just to make a clarification on that neighbor, I ran into him at Walmart the other day, and he's okay about them coming in. He says he put up some smaller trees. He said it'll take a while for them to grow up. And he said, so in a year, if there's a problem, I'll go back. And I said, no, if you have a problem, you go to the zoning officer and let her know, and she will address the situation.
Absolutely.
So he knows that he has somebody he can go to.
Yeah, absolutely, and, yeah, and.
So he was okay about it.
Yeah, and I think they want to be good neighbors, so.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So, anyhow, but we might just want to have some kind of procedure when we issue these special use permits to say, even though they know they're supposed to follow up with me, I've been seeing a little bit more of a lapse in people following up. So maybe when you issue that final letter to them, you might say, and as a reminder, you still need to get your permit from the code enforcement officer and pay for those fees. Just so that it's in writing there. Even though I tell them that, there's nowhere that it's put in writing. So just as a standard procedure.
So it's something we have to do here to send it to them.
Well, you do a final letter. We do a final letter, right? The approval, and just, right?
The decision, yeah.
Yeah, so we can just maybe put it at the bottom so that they have it in writing, so they can't say, oh, well, I didn't know. Yeah. So we had a record number of permits this year, so we've been really busy.
Really?
So
Not new construction,
we've had, this is the most permits I've ever had.
but not for new construction.
For either modifications, new construction, additions, pole barns, those kind of things, roofs.
Is this the only new house down the road here?
This year, we may have had one other double wide. I have to check my records, but yeah, we just closed that one out. Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah.
So, did a nice job.
Okay. Next is the subdividing properties. Just a little update on this. We've had a couple of instances recently in the town where the properties were subdivided without any knowledge of Shelley knowing, or planning board or the zoning board knowing, and it created some difficult parcels, to say the least, right? So we don't have any subdivision laws in our current zoning, and there's been talk about adding that. I got a hold of Kendall's and read through theirs, and it's pretty, theirs is set up in such a way that if you're gonna build a 20-acre subdivision, it's not really set up to address the
Small properties. There was only one note at the end of it. It was under 21, 28.
Yeah.
For minor subdivision, right?
Yep. Yeah, minor subdivision for them is 5 parcels or less.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But they established theirs in 1972, so we haven't had anything since then.
But it sounds like the core of their subdivisions for people making large, taking a big piece of land and cutting up in little pieces, right? For lots of houses.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Mm-hmm. That's not a concern here in our town.
We do have something on what you're talking about, actual subdivisions. which is different from subdividing a lot.
Yeah.
And we do have things on subdivisions.
What do we have on subdivisions?
We have a whole section on it, yeah. But it doesn't address the minor subdividing of a lot. Please note that there has been some controversy, and even though this applies more to the zoning board than it does to the planning board. In the past, we've always looked at a flag lot only being land that was owned for the pole part, the pole being the pole and then the flag. However, there's been some controversy over a right-of-way being described as a flag lot. Now, traditionally in all zoning laws, there is a big difference, but the way ours is written, it kind of defines a right-of-way being a flag lot, and I've been over this with Lance a couple of times, and he said that, yeah, they're kind of describing it as a flag lot. So that, you may want to address that the way that's written and make a recommendation to the board, because we have a situation right now where someone has a right-of-way and they're working towards getting a building permit for a structure on a lot that has no road frontage. But because they have a right-of-way, it's being considered a flag lot. So if you look at the definition of our flag lot and under definition, it kind of, it's an odd description. It's really not a description that we would, in my opinion, truly want for a flag lot. And Lance agreed with me, but we have to go with it because of the way it's written. And so that also goes into subdividing lots, people, because right-of-ways get really complicated, you know? And a right-of-way is where you transverse on somebody else's property. You have the right to transverse on it, but you don't own it. The flag lot, you actually own the part that's, you know, like a 30-foot wide piece of parcel that's going on some, you know, that's on what you would think is on, but really is yours on the piece of property. So.
How often, Shelley, in the last 10 years has this came up?
Couple of times. Yeah. We have a couple of properties that exist, a couple of true flag lots. We have, I want to say at least one or two that are with right-of-ways. But because of the situation and the ways, you know, I've been talking to Lance about it quite a bit. I think it should be defined more clearly. I would ask that you would look at it, make a recommendation to the board. That you may not, you know, but like I said, I've got one right now. He's got it. And the reason we, you know, don't want landlocked pieces of parcels or flag or right-of-way parcels is because for emergencies, you know, right-of-way can be very small, can be very difficult for emergency vehicles to get to them. They don't have the ability to put out mailboxes because they don't own property on the road.
Right.
It can be a real...
From the zoning, how do they define that they can do that? I mean, how do you put that piece together that they can use a right-of-way to build on?
If you look at the way the definition's written of flag lot, go into the definition section. And
yeah,
are you in the definition section? It's in the beginning of the book?
Lot.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it right here.
Okay, and then where it says an easement is considered, or read the part where it says an easement. It refers to it as an easement. Do you want? I don't have my book on.
But aren't you asking something different? Aren't you asking how does someone go about? How can they do this without?
How can they get a right of way?
No, how can they make landlocked lots?
Anybody can make a landlocked piece of parcel in the town of Berry because we don't have any
subdividing laws.
Because we don't have any laws that require subdivision to come to anybody.
To be approved by the town.
To be approved by me, by the town.
There's no approval process at all.
Correct.
They just go to a lawyer, write up a contract, sell a piece of land.
If somebody asks me, I tell them I don't recommend it because it creates a problem for
But
the
I
future.
guess I'm missing that piece that says where a right-of-way can be used for a building
Or a
lot.
building lot,
It-
that's wrong.
Where it's here, I mean,
It's not used as a building lot.
That's what
it's
she
not,
said.
as a building lot is a, where's your definition?
Well, if they're allowed to build on it.
Not on the right of way. The right of way allows you to get to your landlocked piece of land that you're gonna build on. Right? Shouldn't.
The definition.
Look,
So,
a right of way shouldn't allow you to build on your lot, on your land?
You can have a right-of-way to get
Okay.
to a empty lot, but not to a built lot.
so if it's
Flag lot right
if you're gonna
here.
build and you gotta
Okay.
zone, you'd have
Let
to
me
have
read it to
zone.
you. A type of lot commonly flag lot shaped in configuration in which street frontage is provided by a strip of land which is narrow in relationship to the remainder of the lot and which extends from the main body of the lot to the street. Okay. A lot which does not physically front or abut on a street, this is where this controversy comes in. A lot which does not physically front or abut on a street, but which has access to a street by means of an easement, which is a right-of-way, over the other property shall be deemed to be included in this definition. That clause right there is the one that I find problematic. Because that's saying, and I confirmed it with Lance, that a right-of-way then is considered like a flag lot. But if you go into definitions for zoning from the New York State and everybody else, there's a big difference between the two. But we're saying that it's the same. So.
We're saying it's a flag lot.
We're saying a right-of-way is a flag lot,
But
but a
then
right-of-way.
but then we're defining a flag lot that you have to have access to the road.
Right, but we just said if you have an easement and a right-of-way is an easement,
I
then.
get that, but
Yeah.
then we just say if it has an easement, we consider it a flag lot. But then that should default to then the flag lot's definition for a building permit.
Yeah, I went
That's
with.
how I read it.
I went with Lance on it and I said, what do I do? He said, and then you've gotta allow somebody who has a right-of-way to get a building permit because it's considered a flag lot. Our definition says it shall be considered a flag lot. I went to Lance on it
No,
because
I'm not saying that's what our definition is, but then I'm saying, so we recognize it as a flag lot, and then you can issue a building permit per our flag lot criteria, which says it has to have 30 feet width or access, or even street
we can say
frontage.
then the right-of-way has to be 30 feet, but there doesn't have to own it because they just have to have an easement. It's a catch-22. We say it's gotta be this way, but then we're saying this is it.
So once they have the easement or the right-of-way, is that forever? Is that forever? Because if it's forever, it's fine. But if there's gonna be a law that says the next owner can do what they want, then we got big problems.
Well, easements are in the deed. Would you want to drive on somebody else's property to get to your property? I mean, what if you?
If I have the right-of-way for eternity, and the next person does, and the next person does, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, but let's say you
It
brought
doesn't
it.
become a problem, that part, because the one that owns the land puts a gate across, and your dad went through it with Messina on Macamere Road, and it ended up a lot of trouble.
That was a town road, or supposed to be a town road.
Whatever, George, you know where I'm going with it.
Yeah.
It does.
It just creates, it creates problems to me. I mean, I personally would never want, so you rut the road. Now the owner says you've got to fix the road, own it, but you get to, or.
You either fix it or you don't use it.
Yeah, so it can get very sticky, and is this what we want to allow? We're allowing it. So I ask that you look at that in addition to the subdividing property.
Can we change zoning? Do we have that?
You can make the recommendation to the town board and say, we recommend this because of this.
I think where we're heading, if we're gonna put in suggestions to change zoning to have some way to guide people through subdividing, that's one of the things we should be handling in there with it, right?
Correct. It's all, it just, you know, we wanna be as clear as possible what we're presenting to residents. This makes it really murky.
So, getting back to the subdivisions, if someone takes and subdivides, and with the objective of building on it, and they don't meet very close, they can't build on that subdivision.
Correct, it's buyer beware,
So,
yeah.
so we would be helping them by,
Yes,
before you subdivide, you need to, know
Yes.
this.
so that you don't run into problems with the
What
town.
what the process is
If you sell it
is
anyway.
in some of the towns in Genesee County is, first of all, you'd have to make the residents aware of the fact, because this would be a change in the town. You'd have to make county aware of the fact. There's a small fee, I think it's like $10. They have to come to the planning board. Where it gets costly is they have to provide the planning board with a survey. And they have to, and the survey has to be signed off by the chair of the planning board and then taken to county. County can't do it without a signature from the town. And that solves that problem, boom. Then
But
you
typically
have the
that-
right to look at any. What?
Typically, that process would take place before the person closed.
Right, because they can't close, they can't,
Can they
county
close?
would reject it. County would reject it because they don't have your signature.
Okay.
But the biggest thing would be, I would expect that you would require a survey, because why would you wanna sign off on something and then have them survey it or not survey it and then not be what they say they're going to do? The survey is what they send in.
Puts it in writing what it is.
Yep, then it's a done deal.
So how do we get them to know that they have to come here to do that? Like you said, they go through a realtor, the realtor just pushes it through.
Well, county is, you can put the stop at county as long as you make county, I'm assuming, as long as you make county aware that, this law has been enacted and this is our process now, please don't accept any, and so stops it right there.
So
They go to file for it, and guess what, they can't file, so therefore it can't happen.
Because there needs to be a stop somewhere that
Right.
they aren't gonna.
I mean, we would want to publish it to the, the residents, either on our website and do a public hearing and put it in the penny saver, because it is a change and some people are going to balk at that, but it will protect us in the long run and them and future people and everything else.
Just to clarify, the reason why they're going to the county as part of making this subdivision is to get a new tax number for that?
Yes, correct. That's a process you have to do.
To get the tax number.
Correct.
The thing that's concerning is that when you buy a piece of property and you go through the closing process, the last thing you do after it's all done is it's filed with the county clerk. So how would the county clerk have any stop process if she's the last one to see it?
It can't be filed, so therefore it didn't happen.
But that's after the parties have exchanged funds.
I guess I can't answer that question. Yeah, your
attorneys,
so it's got to be
they got to be up.
It's got to be stopped prior to the closing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So letters to the local attorneys.
Well, what if,
That'll only happen.
if you're saying they gotta have a survey, that's expensive, because that's going to cause people not want to
Lot
buy.
size,
I know.
there's just too many, it's not that simple.
By having to have a survey ahead, you're gonna hinder sales. Because
Anyone who's going to go through a mortgage company, the bank is going to require a survey.
Yeah, but that's usually paid for by the seller.
Well, that can be, that's not up to us to negotiate for future buyers in the town. And, but a bank is going to require a survey.
Yeah, the bank requires the
cash
seller,
deals.
the seller to do that.
So
But you're putting an extra
We
burden
got
on a
Lance coming
purchaser.
maybe for the next meeting, let's run it by him.
I'd like to see can you send me an email of what we have in our current zoning that talks about subdivisions, because
Yeah.
could it?
Yeah.
And maybe Lance can bring.
It has more to do with not subdivision of land, but subdivisions, where we talk about multiple houses in a tract housing. That's what we have zoned here. Tract housing.
But we have to, gentlemen, we have to think about, do people want to sell their land? if the purchaser has to do a survey, that's gonna cause the purchaser to have more money, out more money, and it will relinquish people from wanting to come into our community if they don't have to do it in other places. However, if the seller, which state says the seller has to pay, as you know, the state always says the seller pays for the survey, we've got to make sure that we're not deterring people from coming in. So we've got to think about that aspect as well.
Well, if the seller wants to sell it and he has to do a survey.
And if the buyer wants to buy, then, I mean,
the seller could pay for it.
if the buyer wants to buy it too bad enough, then they're gonna
so,
spend the money for the survey.
right? We're assuming these are the cash deal because the bank's gonna require these things.
Right.
So if I walk in with cash and I'm foolish enough to give Kirk 50,000, tells me that he owns part of the bridge or something, I mean, they're gonna do their own homework. We're getting way,
Like I said, we got our attorney, let's.
I mean, let's just have him run it. I mean, no, I agree, but I don't think we're gonna deter anyone, because I think if you have the cash, you're gonna research it yourself. I wouldn't buy something unless I knew what I was buying, right?
Maybe. Some people don't.
Well,
Well, I think what we're looking at here is the subdivision has to be, if we're gonna make a proposition or zoning, if you're gonna subdivide, it has to be big enough to handle a building lot, or you have to be aware of that if you're gonna put a building lot on there. If it gets so small that, you know, everybody's gonna get a survey, yeah, no, but if the subdivision is big enough that it can easily handle 2 housing or 2 business lots, then maybe you don't need to get the survey. But if it's close, yeah, probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Do you, as the board, do you want to sign off on something without a survey?
no.
Let's ask Lance what he suggests.
Right.
No, right?
I mean, if it's,
What if
they
they
got a property
purchase
that's
it,
already been there.
Dick had a question.
what if they purchase it on a land contract? There's nothing involved, like you were saying, cash, there's nothing involved, so how, don't have to have a survey or anything like that,
Right.
you know, now what do you do?
Well, if you did a title search or an abstract title, I don't know if those things are required in a purchase.
Yeah.
In some purchases, they're not, are they?
No.
So, it's the same old thing, buyer beware.
Right, but, you know, do you know many, I get calls from people asking about building in the town of Berry. I welcome those calls because they want to know, can I put a single wide in? Can I do this? How big does a lot have to be? You know, those are the kind of calls I want to get. Can you imagine someone spending all the cash they had to buy a piece of property and then they find out that they can't even build? You know, then that's not a great thing. It's not a great thing for people.
Or can't put a septic in because the lot's too small.
Right, right. So, I mean, we've talked about this for years. I have brought this to the board for years. I have been, you know.
And we're working on it.
I know. Sorry.
We'll do some more work on it next week.
And I'll continue to promote it.
Okay. You wanna tell us about the idling thing, the vehicle idling thing?
Oh, that was just something that came up at the last meeting, and with the gentleman that was here, and he wanted to discuss the idling of the vehicles and the 5-minute rule.
At the truck shop.
Right. According to New York State, it's the repair shop is exempt from that. He's exempt from, he can idle that truck and warm it up as long as it needs to be to do the maintenance on it. The state is pretty definitive on what they'll allow and when they'll allow it, and that's one instance. You know, farm vehicles can idle as long as they're providing power to something.
But the idle, what was the context of the actual idle law? Is it like a commercial truck sitting on a road, can't just sit there and idle?
No, there's New York State Environmental Conservation Law prohibits heavy-duty vehicles, including diesel trucks and buses, from idling for more than 5 minutes at a time. Exceptions are when a vehicle is stuck in traffic, idling for maintenance purposes, powering an auxiliary function or apparatus such as a concrete tumbler, involved in emergency situations, that's for fire or rescue, a diesel-fueled truck operating in ambient temperatures below 25 degrees Fahrenheit for more than 2 hours. Then it just goes on to say, you know, it is a good practice to not idle your vehicle. Be conscious of it. They can issue you tickets, but they don't go around doing that. Just
You know, that should go in the quill folder.
Sure.
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
I just wanted to bring up one other thing too, that this was in the Buffalo paper in November.
Yep. No, you can keep that one.
Casadega Wind Farm gets state approval from the Public Service Commission. Just talks about the project and, it says that the project still must clear the Article 10 proceeding before work can begin. So, it's in town of Cherry Creek, Charlotte, are great. What else is on there?
This one here, for everybody's appointment when their terms are up.
Oh, can you go over that?
Sure. This is the members of the committee and the years that were up, and then we're just going to go through a reappointment for January. Who's 18? Who was up at 18? Kirk is up at 18. Okay. So I'll just go down the list from 19 on. I'm Wesley Miller. My term is done in 19. Oh, okay. Kurt Dudley's is 20. John DePady, 21. Tom Keeler, 22. Gene Peglow, 23. Kirk Mathis, 24. Steve Harlan, 25.
Well, I'm on there from before, I think.
Yeah,
That should be crossed off.
that's what we were.
Yeah.
So it could be 24.
It's 7 years, one every 7 years.
Yeah, it would be. You're right.
He's on for 24, but he took,
Willie's.
no, not Willie's place.
Took Paul's.
Paul Gillette.
Oh, Paul's.
And his was up,
Paul Gillette, so his is up.
so that's why you got switched up
Lee,
Okay.
did you talk over that with Sean? Because Willie's wasn't on there.
there. Yes, that was up.
He'd been deleted right off the thing for the last few years.
Right. And that's,
So you've made
yeah,
that. Okay.
with Sean and I, we got
Right.
together.
Yep. And then George is in 2025.
Okay, there was not any county planning board meeting this last 2 months. So the one on Thursdays, still only has a few things on the agenda, so.
Most of it's procedural and closing out a year and starting next
Yeah.
year.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Need a motion for
Move to adjourn the